Hello from Joel and Cindy Graining in the Philippines. As the Apostle Paul wrote in Philippians, "Every time I think of you, I give thanks to my God, for you have been my partners in spreading the good news about Christ."
We too give thanks to God for your partnership in spreading the good news of Christ here in the Philippines, as well as on the continent of Asia in several places. We thank God for protecting His purposes on each trip. We never know where He'll ask us to go, and yes, honestly, we do have some hesitancy. However, we know our answer must be yes. We will follow where He leads. And when we do follow Him to new places in obedience, His joy accompanies us. In this report, we'd like to take you with us to an island in the central Philippines. We flew, rode the bus, and the ferry, and then were taken to the house where we lived for 4.5 weeks.
When we first arrived, the rice in the fields was still very green. And after a few weeks, it became heavier and more yellow. The rice was harvested and fed into the thresher for separating the rice and the chaff. And then it dried on the side of the road for 3 days. And then the cycle begins again with plowing the field.
We'd like to introduce the translator Heather and her husband Stan. She's been working for 35 years among the ASI people on this island. The culmination will be the dedication of the New Testament with Genesis and Exodus in early April 2017. Heather and her translation assistant, Tess, have diligently been working through the revision of the whole New Testament. Just as all those reams of paper are heavy, the responsibility of making God's Word clear, accurate, and natural has also been heavy. People from the organization Faith Comes by Hearing recorded the complete New Testament in 6 weeks. The sound wave files were sent to them and are being processed with music and sound effects. Heather asked us to record Genesis and Exodus, that is 90 chapters altogether. Thankfully, the recording booth and the studio were still all set up when we arrived.
Here's how the recording process works.
Higot niyan rakali sa atubangan ni turban ikpisi na kason, pormi sa ginsugo Ginoo kang Moises.
There were also crowd scenes. Here the men are complaining to Joseph because of the famine. They have no more food.
Gobernador, taway baga kami at pagkaon.
Asa imo baga kami abadaang mamatay sa imo atubangan. Ubusay nakadol kag amo kwarta.
Ubusay kag kwarta.
The Hebrews sang praise to God for rescuing them from the Egyptians and crossing the Red Sea. Our group decided to read it alternatively with a man, a woman, and a crowd. Listen to the last verse.
Sa templo nakintindrog it imo damot, kag Ginoo it mahari, hastang sa wayat katapusan.
All the recorded clips were gathered into chapters to form stories.
The translator and her friend, Hope, translated old and new songs in ASI. The songbooks are being published now for selling during the dedication in April. Accompaniment music was produced and saved on their keyboard. These young men are like wizards and so creative.
Kalikag panahon mo kuusog kag mag-backslide. Kalikag panahon magbalik luot sa Ginoo. Kita'y magkausap, magpurig magdayaw.
These songs will be produced onto CDs, but also on micro SD cards and USB sticks and onto cell phones. So that is what we'll prepare. The pastor, who is the district supervisor, read all the books of John for the New Testament recording and said,
I learned so much as I understood the whole meaning in ASI, much better than in Tagalog or Ilonggo.
He also read the narrator parts for Exodus. Each Sunday we attended a different church with Heather and Stan. Heather is pre-advertising for the April dedication, plus giving away CDs. Afterwards, Stan sold his crafted posters with ASI Bible verses. You can see the posters are a hit. We enjoyed Filipino hospitality and lunch at each place.
One Sunday afternoon, a visitor came uninvited into the house. We called the landlord, and he came with his pistol, and that was the end of his story, 7.5 feet long. I had a birthday, and Hope also had one that month. We celebrated and thanked God for the new ASI recordings. After 5 weeks away from home, we were glad to return home again to Milo.